But suddenly the Democrats and the machine want to go after your gas stove. So now CNN...
Nobody's going after your gas stove. I love the framing of this. I love the framing of this. Guys, apparently gas stoves are a thing that people are worried about now. And I'm tired. I'm tired is what I am. I'm very, very tired. Let's go ahead and check out what they're talking about, because stoves? Really? That's where the culture war is going? Stoves? Alrighty. Let's get into the fan art section. Let's get right into that. This one's from Double Bubble Disco Queen. It said, I'm going in a direction. Like, oh no, someone coin-pleated Planeswalker Slime Suris. Who could have done such a thing? I'm sure Sheoldred doesn't know either. Why? Why? The next one we have here is from Mikey. Suris in a Neko Slime Suris hoodie. Very fluffy inside. And a neckcoin, because there, of course, has to be a neckcoin. I can't get away from the coins. I will never be able to get away from the coins. Okay, sure. And thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it in the fan art section of the Discord. With that all said, let's go ahead and get right into things.
Globalists come up. What are the solutions that globalists come up with? Do they come up with solutions that free more people, that help you figure out, or help create the conditions so that you can live your life as you see fit?
Okay, so I like when we start out the gate with the whole anti-Semitic dog whistle. It's hilarious to me. It's the best thing in the entire world. Just begin the globalists. The globalists, everyone. The globalists. I'm sorry. If there's anything to make me more tired of something Dave Rubin's going to say, it's going to be that. And Niji Kawasaki, of course. My final act before bed. Uwu has defeated OO and won the war. It has not. But for 50,001 channel points, you have made me say Uwu. That's what you wanted, right? Is that the thing that makes you happy? Because your standards are shit. Go away. Warlord video game glitch. Thank you very much for redeeming your points for... Oh, whoa. Anywho, Dave, let's go. Let's get past the anti-Semitic dog whistle thing.
Is that what they're interested in doing? Are they interested in, say, spreading capitalism, which, of course, is the idea that we can all together rise together because of competition and human ingenuity? And
that's not what capitalism is or means, Dave. What? Capitalism is merely, like literally, functionally, all capitalism is the idea that wealth should be able to be accumulated into the hands of the few. That's what capitalism is at its core. The ability for the accruance and usage of capital. The ability for businesses to be ran for the sake of capital. The idea that capitalism is competition is also a bit of a misunderstanding. So, yes, competition happens under capitalism, but competition to the end of what? It's not to the end of innovation, because sometimes an innovation is used to give you an edge over your opponent. Sometimes you just end up marketing and lying about the stuff you make in order to get an edge over your opponent. If you want to know an industry that is based entirely off of lies and yet somehow still manages to survive, please check out the essential oils industry. Like, anything that can make their line go up, they will do. Competition exists in mercantile capitalism. It exists in our current version of capitalism. It exists even in communism. It exists even in socialism. Because competition is just a thing that we do as humans. It is not predicated on any one economic system. Now, certain economic systems will value certain goods over others in terms of whether they should be communally owned or whether they should be owned by, private corpos. Take a guess over which one's which. But when you look at the idea of competition, what is competition for in the case of capitalism? Well, in the case of capitalism, competition is there only for the purpose of creating monopoly. Its job is not for ingenuity. Its job is survival of the fittest. And eventually, one company comes out owning a monopoly over, say, the entertainment industry or the food industry or what have you. There's only so many ways that an economic system that is based off of nothing but a war of attrition can end. I hate to tell you, this is why we have the term late-stage capitalism. Also, Maurice Bear, thank you for giving me your points for an ara. You fucking degen. And Ravalern, yes, you did earn this because you did drop $100 into the Subathon fund. Thank you for dropping that muns. Oh, whoa. Now please, do yourself a favor and go find a gelatinous puddle on the ground and, I don't know, run at it real fast. All right, Dave, let's go.
Individual thought and all of that stuff. Is it that what they're pushing on us, or is it always about taking something away, whether that's your ability to go outside or your right to medical privacy?
So he just basically hit on anti-vaxxing and masks. Those are the two things he hit on. So you're right. When we talk about the rights for people, we tend to not look at them from a utilitarian perspective. We tend to look at them from a perspective of emotions. I'm going to be honest. I think it would be a good idea for us to look at these things from a utilitarian perspective more often than not. Because when we're talking about things like, say, mask mandates, we're talking about things like, say, vaccinations and the public access to that kind of information, that kind of knowledge. Your privacy doesn't mean a whole lot when it comes to vaccination. It doesn't mean jack shit. Your privacy means a whole lot when it comes to, say, do you have hemorrhoids? Do you have an STD? Like, do you have stuff like that? Your privacy is probably a little more important in those situations because there's social stigma for those. But when it comes to a vaccination, the only way you can even get a social stigma for that is, well, by creating it yourself, as people on your side of the aisle tend to do, Dave. The reason I say we need to look at these things from a utilitarian perspective is because if you look at these things in terms of benefits, in terms of things that are gained and things that are lost, if everybody knows the vaccination status of everyone else, then it is more likely that people will be able to safely navigate things like, say, measles and COVID and, God forsake, smallpox, if that were to ever come back in force. Vaccination knowledge is important when it comes to determining how safe it is to navigate around in a population. And speaking of safety of navigation in a population, when COVID was at its deadliest was when we restricted people the most. But COVID has been getting less deadly over time because that is what viruses do when they exist for a long period of time. They try desperately to keep their host alive for longer. Those are the variants that manage to propagate themselves more. As a result, COVID, while still very dangerous and while still having a death toll attached to it, isn't as dangerous now with the more virulent variants. It is easier to spread, it is more likely to hit somebody who is immunocompromised, but in terms of how debilitating, how dangerous it is on its own, it is a little less so. As a result, things like mask mandates and things like, requiring people to be locked in have gone down. Now, were those mandates proportionate to what we needed? No, not really. We needed more government support for lockdowns to even work effectively the first time around. And nowadays, people just kind of pretend that COVID doesn't exist, and then people still die from it. It's really weird. It feels like we can't actually strike the right balance with this disease, with this virus. We can't. And it's kind of awkward. But anyway, I like that he brings that stuff up, because then we're left to contextualize it for him.
Or perhaps even to cook on a simple gas stove.
Gas stoves could soon get 86th from kitchens across the country going forward. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commissioner is considering a ban on the appliances for new builds. It says those appliances can be a source of indoor pollution, sometimes linked to childhood asthma.
I mean, yeah. Like, having gas is more dangerous than electric in most cases. Especially since we in the United States build a lot of our houses out of wood. Like, having an open flame in the middle of the house is a dangerous thing. Duh. But also, if we find out that there are actual medical issues with an appliance, then sometimes getting rid of that appliance is an okay thing to do. There's plenty of things we used to use in our homes that have been taken out of our homes, that have been mandated out of new builds of homes because those things caused us trouble. I'm thinking of lead paint. I'm thinking of asbestos. I'm thinking of these things that used to be ubiquitous to the modern American home, but have now been phased out because we understand more dangers that are linked to them. Now, there is something to be said about how good gas stoves are for certain types of recipes. Electric stoves do not fully replace the types of food you can make with a gas stove. I want to make that 100% clear. If you're cooking with a wok, for instance, a gas stove is going to work way better than anything else because the way you cook with a wok is by tilting it around the actual flames from the stove. Now, you can cook with a wok better on, say, induction than you can on electric. Just throw that out there right now. If you don't like electric, but you still want a lot of your cookware to operate well, induction will do better than a pure electric stove that just has the heat, fire up. But regardless of that, it is a fairly normal thing as we understand the science behind how certain appliances, behind how certain building techniques affect people. It is a fairly common thing for us to move away from certain things with our builds. Now, could you go make your own lead paint and paint your house with it? Sure, you could do that right now. I'm not advocating for you to do that, but you could if you so chose. If you bought a house and it does not have a gas stove in it because of a mandate, you can just go buy a gas stove and install a gas line. That is a thing you can do. You are still 100% able to do exactly that. Nobody is stopping you from doing that. The mandate he's talking is a mandate on new builds of houses and the appliances that will be included in those new builds. New builds of houses does not mean that gas stoves are banned. New builds of houses means we don't build houses and install a gas stove in them as part of building procedures, which can also mean not installing a gas line into the house as part of building procedures. Unless you happen to have, say, a furnace as the way the house is heated, then you might still have a gas line. But I like how people like Dave Rubin immediately say, this is the liberals coming for your freedoms. Nobody's coming for your freedoms. This is literally just a thing we have discovered may be detrimental to human health, and so it is being phased out. But you have the ability to use it yourself individually if you still so choose. Nobody is stopping you.
But also the gas, no gas lines in new construction. Is that about fossil fuels or is it about... Sorry, I'm getting in trouble.
That's short answer. It's about climate change because methane is 80 times more powerful than CO2 when it comes to heating up the planet. So big time, but in small spaces, it's personal health.
Okay, cool. We know that man-made climate change is a problem, and we know that we can affect it. So not only is it personal health, but also the fact that it is actively burning a fossil fuel source. There's nothing wrong with phasing it out then. Eventually, vehicles are going to be phased into electric too the same way, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
It is an incredible moment that happened there on CNN. I've often talked to you guys about how, so I have a thing in my ear when I do this show. It's not because anyone's talking to me or telling me what to do. It's so that when we play those videos, so that we don't get feedback, I can actually hear the videos. So as you're watching them live, I can hear them through here.
Thank you for explaining how headphones work. Nobody would have known before. We understand that you have a lapel mic on. We can very clearly see it. You don't hide it very well. And we understand that you have headphones in. We understand how those work, Dave. Thank you so much.
Now she, the host of CNN over there, she's getting information as she's talking, right? They're telling her what to say, or they're telling her not what to say. She was getting in trouble?
Or is it about... Sorry, I'm getting in trouble.
What?
So, yeah, when you're on a newscast, specifically when you're on a newscast, when you're in an area that's trying to do 24-hour news, which is what most newscasts do now, then you're going to have people who say, hey, there's a story we're trying to put, this is the angle the story is supposed to have, talk about that angle for the story. Like, that is literally just having a boss, Dave. That's all it is. That's just having a boss. If you want to convey information a certain way, and you start tripping up over yourself, and a boss tells you, hey, you're doing things wrong, we are a news network, we have a certain level of credibility that we're trying to manage, that's a normal-ass thing, Dave. That is a completely normal thing. I like the virtue signal of when I have a headphone in, it's not so people can tell me what to do, it's so I can hear video feedback. Dave, we don't care. It doesn't matter. People telling her what to do is fine because you work independently under a publisher. She does not work independently under a publisher. She works as part of a news organization.
Also, the fact that CNN is now doing stories on the problems with gas stoves. It's funny, they weren't doing it last week, but suddenly the Democrats and the machine want to go after your gas stove, so now CNN...
Nobody's going after your gas stove. I love the framing of this. I love the framing of this. If you are not actively buying a new house that is being built right now from scratch, then you're not losing a gas stove. When he uses the language of the Democrats are coming for your gas stoves. But when you actually think about how the legislation is worded, when you actually think about how that legislation is going to be implemented, yeah, you're right, Anubian. All he's doing at that point is fear-mongering. Nobody is coming for your gas stoves. Nobody gives a fuck about your gas stove. I'm sorry. Your gas stove is not so important. Just like people don't come for your gun. Manufacturing and sales changes happen for guns, but people don't break into your house and come for your guns. But part of the machine that Dave Rubin is a part of is one that requires people to be constantly fear-mongered, requires people to be in a constant state of panic. And if people aren't in a constant state of panic, then Dave Rubin doesn't get his money. He needs people... Okay, I don't know the best way to put this. How many of you are familiar with the concept of the page turn? How many of you are familiar with the concept of the leading statement at the end of the chapter? Right? I think everybody is at least somewhat familiar with that idea. I've been reading the Dresden Files recently. I'm on book 4, and every single chapter ends with a cliffhanger into the next chapter. Every single one. Shows that are made to be binged on Netflix end with a cliffhanger at the end of each episode. Why do they do that? Well, very simply, it's so that you keep tuning in. It's so that you read the next chapter, so that you read the next page. It is there specifically to make sure that you anticipate what comes next and you are waiting with bated breath. Fear-mongering works in a lot of the same way. If you're made to panic about the state of the world, and you're wondering where you can get accurate information about the state of the world, you will find yourselves constantly tuning into the people telling you that they can give you accurate information about the state of the world. And the more afraid you are about how fucked up the world is, the more isolated you will find yourself. The more you will find yourself tuning back into that content. Because that content told you that not only is the world screwed up, but don't worry, they have a solution. They have a plan. These are the thinkers that you are supposed to be turning to. Because of that, people like Dave Rubin, when they fear-monger, they are utilizing the exact same psychological technique as the page turn in a narrative. Well, you just have to tune in to the next time he says something, because I wonder how much more corrupted the world's going to be. I wonder how much more it's going to slip. I have to know. I have to be prepared. I have to make sure I'm buying gold and dietary supplements. If I don't buy them now, the globalist scum will take over everything. That, Alex Jones utilizes it too. But now that we're done deconstructing the fact that he's not actually telling the truth here, nobody's coming for your fucking gas stove, it's hyperbole at best and fear-mongering at worst, let's continue.
And starts telling you about all the problems with gas stoves. I want to be very clear. You motherfuckers. Sorry, Chris, and now we're getting demonetized. I did it. No.
Fuck, shit, ass, cum, bitch. Damn. Sorry. I have to show you guys something. I'm very familiar with demonetization. I am incredibly familiar with demonetization. Do you see all of these yellow marks? Do you see them? Demonetized videos. I am super ridiculously familiar with the concept. Don't be a fucking coward. You make millions of dollars. You dumb fuck.
Lunch for anybody. You're never coming for my gas stove. When we moved here to Florida, the street that I live on does not have natural gas to each of the houses, so we had an electric stove here. David is a great chef. I talked about this yesterday. I've gotten actually pretty good myself. I really enjoy cooking now. And cooking on an electric stove is not fun. It is mechanical and technical. There's no feel for it. That's why no chef, go to any restaurant, any great restaurant, go to any mediocre restaurant, basically go to any restaurant on earth, and they're cooking with fire. You know, people have been cooking for fire for a long time.
And? Who cares? Like, you're not trying to be an all-star chef in your house, you're just trying to get a meal made.
The cavemen. It was a long time ago, they were cooking with fire. Fire good, okay? You are not coming. The first thing we did...
That's not an argument. Also, it's not the fire that is the problem half the time. It's the fuel, Dave. Nobody gives a fuck if you're cooking over a wood-burning stove, which is a thing you can do. You can do that right now. You can literally buy a wood-burn stove and cook with that if you so choose. If you need your caveman brain stroked, if you need to ejaculate rejecting modernity, you can do that right now. Nobody is stopping you, Dave. Nobody is stopping you. I like how he says, like, oh, well, nowhere has gas lines here. Bitch, you know what doesn't have gas lines? You know what else doesn't have gas lines? Where I live. Except we do have gas lines. Everybody where I live has a big ol' personal tank of gas. We don't have city gas lines. We have installed personal tanks because we have to supply our own heat. We also all have wells because we don't have city lines. We have to supply our own water. You know what happens when the well goes out? Your toilet doesn't flush. That's what happens. Like, here, Dave, if you really need to cook with fire, just get a wood stove. You can do it. It'll let you have the fire without the pollution problem. It'll let you have the fire without the asthma problem. As long as you've got a chimney to handle the smoke, you're good. You can do all of that. Also, I like how he bitches about electric stoves. I'm gonna tell you right now, I've cooked on gas, I've cooked on electric. I don't give a shit. There are, again, like I said before, there are certain cooking techniques that are easier on gas. Cooking with a wok is way easier on gas. Cooking with a skillet is easier on gas. Boiling water can be faster on gas. It doesn't matter, though. It really doesn't. Unless you are a speedrunner when you think about cooking. Unless you are min-maxing cooking. Unless you have a games done quick with that fucking steak you're making. None of that information truly matters. Let's continue, Dave.
We removed that electric thing. We tried to figure out if there was a way to do some like crazy thing to get gas to the house. Couldn't do that, but we got propane, buried a tank outside, and now we have fire, and that's what we're cooking with. And you ain't.
Oh, so you did the exact thing I said you could do? You did the exact thing I said you would be able to do because it's the exact thing we have here? Oh, so you did that thing and now you don't have a reason to bitch. Look at that.
Coming for.
If you enjoyed this video, hit...
Who the fuck are you? Go away. Ew. I don't know you. I wanted Dave. I dislike him enough for the both of us. No, I didn't enjoy any of that. Not one bit. But Dave, my guy, my friend, my friend Aruni. Gas stoves being the culture war thing that people are focusing on now, this is a you thing. Of all the political issues that we would be talking about in 2023, gas stoves was not one that I thought we were going to be doing it. And yet, this has turned into a culture war issue. Conservatives apparently are gearing up for a fucking war about cookery of all things. Let me make one thing clear. If science says that gas stoves have a negative effect on human health, have a negative effect on the environment, and are largely a potential problem when it comes to making, new houses, then sure, getting rid of them is fine when it comes to the building of houses. There will still be manufacturers who make gas stoves. There will still be places that sell propane. There will still be ways for you to get gas. There will still be ways for you to get fire in that house. You will always have a way to do that. You will always have a method of making that happen. You can be upset that the world around you is changing, but that's what this always is. It's a conservative death rattle about change. Now, there is something else I need to point out, though, when we're talking about global warming, when we're talking about, pollutants. Individual pollutants for global warming, like me and you, random-ass people, we do not actually contribute a significant amount to global warming. We don't. I understand there is a conversation to be had about who the actual culprit is when it comes to global warming, which is largely the industrial sector. Recent studies have said that United States homes with gas stoves are to blame for 13% of childhood asthma cases. Gas stoves being powered by fossil fuels increases the demand for the fossil fuel industry and therefore creates a problem for all of us later on down the road. I'm okay accepting all that. If you want to talk about global warming, we aren't the biggest contributors there, but I can understand that as well. I can. What I want to understand from Dave, or what I want you to understand about Dave, when he makes content, he is not making content for the purpose of informing you. He's making content for the purpose of inflaming you. He's making content for the purpose of making you afraid, for making you fear, of making you angry. His job is to be a gay shock jock. Him and Alex Jones and Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and all of them, their job to varying degrees is to take conservatism, wrap it in a package, and hand it to you. Matt Walsh is the theocratic fascist package. Ben Shapiro is the philosophy bro package. Alex Jones is the conspiracy nut package. Dave Rubin is the desecrated liberal package. They are all different wrapping papers, but they all serve the same goal. Feed you conservatism with a spoon. And I think it's good that we spend time acknowledging that, as opposed to just pointing out all the myriad of ways he's wrong. We can already do that. Sometimes it's also important to focus on the more meta-narrative there. But with that said, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and I'm glad that Dave Rubin isn't inflating you. Insert end of video tagline here.